Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hotline League episode 125. We are just a little bit over a week out from the start of Summer Split, and some interesting news has been dropping in the League of Legends world in the past couple of days, including the retirement of Uzi and so much more. So we're going to get into that, as well as having conversations about the start of Summer Split. And next week, we'll be previewing the first weekend, I guess, but I think this episode will be a great one for us to just talk in general about what your expectations are for Summer Split. So we'll be taking your calls. Also want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Draft Buff and Alienware, for sponsoring the show. Really appreciate it. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good. I mean, in the correct context of as good as you can do in this current environment. I don't have to leave my apartment for work very much. I've walked around my block to check out if anything's gone down. Seems like we're in a pretty good spot. So
yeah,
I'm okay. How are you?
Similar. It's a it's a little weird where Kobe and I have been ordering out a lot, and you have to
Curfew now.
You have to figure stuff out before dinner hits because we've got so many curfews in LA. And in fact, I heard that in North America, all the different teams, or in LA, all the different teams have started scrimming, and normally scrims went until, I want to say, like 5 or 6 every day, but they now stop scrimming at 4. Everybody goes and gets food and gets ready for curfew, and then they scrim for another 2 hours, which is interesting. So it's been fascinating. On that topic, I think, Mark, you and I both talked before the show started about how we felt like we should say something or address sort of what's going on in the U.S. right now.
Do you want to go first, or should I? Because I don't know if you wrote something up, but I just have like little notes of things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I'll just say, sort of off the cuff, I did think about like preparing a statement or something, but just felt like it would be, for me at least, a little more genuine off the cuff. And I don't know, I think for me, I have not said too much in my own voice on social media about everything that's happening in the US right now, because I feel like while my support is important, I'm not the best person to comment on this. There's a lot of other voices out there that are more valuable in terms of sharing their experiences and their knowledge of all these issues. And so I've been trying to amplify a lot of that on social media, but I have been really proud, I think, of the way in which a lot of esports organizations and individuals have all spoken up in support of fighting back against racism and intolerance and just really terrible shit that has long been an issue in the US, but I think has come to the forefront more recently in the past couple of years. And I just want to say, it's been tough seeing everything over the past week or so, and it's part of the reason why Mark and I felt we should move the show on Monday, because crazy stuff was happening. As Mark's cat,
Dude, my cat is the most disrespectful motherfucker in the world.
Unsurprising.
We're talking about Black Lives Matter right now, dude.
Unsurprising. This is why cats are not. Anyway, so I don't know. One thing I'll say I thought was really interesting and a little more close to home for TGI was that Broden actually went out to the protest this past weekend. I think it was yesterday, actually, that he was at one of them and basically had to escape because police moved in, started boxing people in, and started firing rubber bullets and tear gas at them. And I asked him, is this because curfew was coming up? And he's like, no, they started doing all this at 2:30 and curfew's at 4 or 6 in Hollywood. So anyway, it's just it's really crazy to see what's out there going on out there, and it's really terrible to see.
Yeah, I definitely, I had a couple things that I wanted to definitely talk about with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, because I think there's a bunch of things obviously wrong in the world that I probably have been. I've never been someone who's politically active on my Twitter and stuff, but I don't. That's necessarily the right perspective I should have had. And it's like you during this time, I've spent a lot more time retweeting other people, especially Black people, if I can, to try and get their perspective out there. Because listening and watching everything I've definitely learned a lot more than I knew before, which I think, it's important to admit, so that, not everyone is just, I don't know, pretend like we always did. I don't know. There's a couple things that stood out to me. One, which was, so this is something that's kind of independent that I think people just need to realize, even beyond just with human nature, is there's a phenomenon called the backfire effect or the boomerang effect, depending on what you want to mean. It's like a psychological phenomenon that happens when you're confronted with information that challenges your worldview. And it's like a physiological feedback that you get. And it's like why you get angry and stuff like that. And so I think it's important for people to listen to everything that's going on, and read the retweets and listen to the videos that people are retweeting and actually try to learn and disarm yourself. I know Jackie Collins in Twitch chat, just to shout her out on her Twitter, she's been really good about the stuff that she's been retweeting. So I definitely suggest giving her a follow if you're looking for things to look at. But yeah, it's just something as you go and learn about what's going on in the world, is to make sure you approach with an open mind and acknowledge that, like, when you see something, to take that moment and step back and realize your body's having like you sometimes it is like your body reacting this way, if it's something that you don't like seeing. Like, I've watched a lot of hard videos. Like, I've been glued to Twitter because I don't fucking work right now, really. Yeah. So I've been like, just to be like, I've seen the police brutality and all that going on at the riots and the protests, and I've seen like the impact of looters, and like, it's definitely crazy shit, but there's a lot of things that you have to take into account and see.
Yep.
So that's one thing, is like, as you're like going through this, is like actually making sure that you're open to understanding. You're not going in with like what you believe at first. Another thing, like, these are just things that I think can help people try and understand some of this stuff, is someone was making a good point. I should have like sourced everything beforehand, but I didn't, which is probably stupid. But people talk about justice versus law and how they're not inherently the same thing. And it's something that I hadn't really thought about too much. It's something I think I kind of understood, but like, all around the world, people have different laws about things. And I don't think anyone's going to pretend that every single country's laws, every single one of them, is just, because otherwise everyone would have the exact same set of laws. If it was this easy to understand, everything is the same. Like, there's countries with really backwards ass laws. And like, if those exist in those countries, it's totally possible and probable that there are backwards ass laws and institutions and things like that in our own. And understanding that a law is not inherently just, and that sometimes to find justice, laws and things like that become less important than the justice itself, is something that people have to understand. Because I think that's something I see a lot of people talking about with the protesting, is like, oh, just go home before curfew. Like, never mind, before you can get into like, they're sending out the curfews too late, or whatever it is. Or like, to Travis's point, like, sometimes the things escalate before curfew even happens, and people are getting the bills for peaceful protest, which you're supposed to get before you go out and stuff like that. And like, even then, the curfews are used to try and quell this protest, and staying out is past the curfews illegal in some sense. And I know a lot of people who say that, like, oh, they just shouldn't protest around those times. But that law it's like prioritizing the law and order over justice, which is why you can't just say, oh, well, that's not legal, they shouldn't be doing that. It's like, well, the laws aren't fair right now, which is why I think it's important to look at what is just as well. And I don't know if I'm coming across too well. This is obviously stuff that I'm not.
I mean, it's difficult. I think it's easy to find yourself, going down a rabbit hole, I think, when talking
mumbling
about this stuff, right?
But like, these are all opinions that I've seen a lot of other people talking about that have changed my perspective a little bit. And not only has it changed mine, but I've been trying to like fight the little battles with the people around me that I probably wouldn't have before. Um, and it can, those things that I thought would be scary conversations to have haven't been that bad for the most part, which I
Yeah.
think is good. Um, and so like what I was saying before, understand the backfire effect on yourself if you're in an argument and you think something about like, oh, well, the protest should just go home. Like, try and actually listen, understand the difference between justice and law and order and these kinds of things. Um, and then there's a lot of perspectives too. Like, you don't have to necessarily agree with like every single thing you see people tweet. I know I don't always, but like there is a lot of perspectives out there. So try and find them. Like, I personally have like retweeted some of Barack Obama's stuff. I saw like the Killer Mike video, those kinds of things. I like, there's a lot of different stuff out there that people should be trying to look at and learn from. Another person I retweeted was Marquez Brownlee. I thought that what he said about like respecting how people choose to fight racism and racial injustice. People might take different avenues, and he was talking about how he tries to be like a figure in the community that he wants people to follow. And I thought that was a cool, like a different perspective. And I think it's important to look at the differences in how people are trying to address it. So like, I don't know. I guess my point is keep an open mind, try and learn the best that you can, and then also participate. I think, because this is a human rights issue and it's not a politics issue. Do your best to learn, but then also vote, donate, demonstrate, educate yourself. There's like so much we can be doing that I need to start doing as well. And I saw someone in chat just say like, oh, it's two white guys talking about racism. And it's like, well, it's better than not. And I think that was a big part of the Marquez Brownlee one that I definitely felt as well. People talk about virtue signaling and performative allyship and stuff like that, which I've always kind of been like, oh, I don't want to look like I'm just saying things and stuff, but moving the needle and stepping up and saying something is important. So I understand some of you guys want to come in here and watch Hotline League. But I thought it was important to take 15 minutes before the show started to talk about some of this stuff and say what I'm going to say on this platform, and then use Twitter to retweet the things that I agree with. And that's it. Glad you could sit through 15 minutes of it.
Well said, Mark. I just want to say once more, like, I was unsure about doing the show tonight, because it just feels like everything is so crazy out there right now. But honestly, the fact of the matter is, going based off of how this year's been, it doesn't feel like there's going to be like a great time to do these types of things. So
yeah,
it's just a crazy world out there. Either way,
yeah.
Thanks everyone. What's that?
Nothing. I was gonna say it's crazy, and I think it's wrong to try and look away and just hope the world gets back to normal.
Yeah. Well, all that being said, it's now time to awkwardly transition into a talk about League of Legends esports, which is the main topic tonight. So either way, thanks everyone for sticking through and watching. All right, so in League of Legends news, Uzi retired. What else do we got?
There was a couple trades, I think, and signings since we last.
Yeah, it's been an interesting thing because I admit, for reasons we were just discussing, it's been hard to like find myself paying too much attention to stuff. Like I'm just gonna be honest, like I didn't watch the C9 TSM show match. So I heard
that shit.
It was a little more memey, right?
I don't know. I didn't. The only things I watched were like the LCK mid-season cup things. I didn't watch much else.
Yeah. So, but I think the Uzi stuff is big. What else? I was looking at Twitch chat right now. So, Someday's contract got extended.
Was the thing with Huni and EG, that was last week, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know if we talked about. I think we talked about the rumor of it, but it got confirmed, right? So that's something that obviously we could discuss too. Let's see what else.
I mean, I think we can talk about some of the
JJ to
mid-season.
dig. Oh yeah, you messaged me about the Afromove thing. I think even.
Oh yeah, that was the dig one that happened, and what it means for Afro and stuff like that.
Yes. I continue to hear, by the way, that X Smithy is on the bench at Immortals. So
I don't know why this came up, but it was in the Crackdown thread, which I didn't watch the show because it's garbage. But I was in the thread, and people were talking about some Smithy drama about showing up drunk or something. Did you watch this or know what?
no, I haven't heard about it. That's wild, though.
Yeah, yeah. I forget. I would like. I wish I've gotten to that time skip or timestamp.
Is the and then Ole no longer at Dignitas? That's out, right?
Yes. He was tweeting up a storm
Yes.
earlier.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that was 6 days ago. I was trying to remember if that was this past week or not. It's been such a wild week that it's like difficult to remember.
Well, and we
what
did
happened
Wednesday last week
Yes.
too.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I think
hungover.
I think that's most of it.
We're also only 1 week away from the LCS. We'll do another show on next Monday, I assume. But if we can also start taking just general takes of like, I think this one.
That's
like,
what I
this
said at
team
the
will
start
do
of the
well.
show was like, hey, rather than talk, so next week's show, I think we'll talk about week 1 and what expectations are there and what you think of the matchups and all that stuff. I think if people want to call in with general calls and takes on the start of summer and what they think summer is going to have and all that, I think that would be great as well. But I think obviously we're now a little bit into the show, so why don't we start just grabbing calls about all sorts of stuff. If you guys want to do that, I know Mark is probably looking right now, so I'll do the rundown. You can take a look at the Pleb Topics channel if you are not a sub. If you are a sub, be sure to put your take in the Subtopics channel. Mark will pull you into the waiting room where just make sure you have your headset unmuted or your speakers unmuted because he'll need to be able to talk to you. And sometimes we pull people in, they've got Discord muted, they won't hear Mark trying to talk to them. And then once we're ready, we'll bring you onto the show. So that's how that goes. Mark's already grabbing people in the waiting room. Thank you to some folks who subbed. Kendo Slice gifted out 5 subs. Wiggles. Oh, by the way, Kendo, thank you. I think you're part of the reason we probably hit that sub train. Monsalicious, ICDK, Narking gifted a sub to Jackie. Lane Plox, and St. Louis Slayer. Oh, and then Lane gifted another one. Dopest is here. Dopest, you've been on the show before, right? Dopest?
What? I just checked that you were okay. What are you doing, Dopest? Let me try moving him.
Oh wait, I saw it light up.
Oh wait,
hello.
Hello.
You've been on the show before, right?
Yes.
Okay, where are you calling from?
Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho. Well, what do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
So I want to talk about CLG and how they confirmed today that they are not making any changes whatsoever to the roster and how they will once again probably be a 10th place team.
Oh boy, so they officially confirmed it then.
Yeah, they said they have one new coaching staff member. I think it's Sojin, who
he was on. He did academy before, right?
Another coach.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I think so.
Coach.
They said he was going to work with Wiggly to hopefully improve him specifically, but outside of that, no roster changes.
I'm trying to see where did they confirm this? I'm on the CLG subreddit.
So they had a YouTube video that they posted.
And then they took it down, right?
Yeah, they took it down. I remember that.
They?
Well, so like 2 weeks ago, I think they did this.
Yeah, they did something like that, but maybe they posted it again recently, Dopus.
I don't know. I can let me grab the link here. Let me grab the.
No,
video.
It's okay. Just go ahead and let us know what the YouTube video is.
Yeah. So, I posted in the general chat, but So basically they said they just said they're not going to make any roster changes outside of that new coaching staff member. And they said they had a lot of faith in the players and are focusing on fundamentals. And in my opinion, I don't think the roster can be salvaged just focusing on fundamentals and whatnot. And even if they do fix a lot of the problems that they had in terms of maybe setups and whatnot, I don't think that the roster as a whole has enough star power to perform any better than they did last split. Like I could see them maybe moving up to like 8th maybe if everything goes super well, but I just really doubt it's going to happen. Especially because they didn't change a massive amount of the coaching staff. They only added like 1 new member.
I'm kind of like, I knew that this was coming, but it's still in this moment is surprising to hear that they're just not making changes. Like, if you're a CLG fan,
Great.
first off, it's pretty lonely. Secondly, it's got to feel tough. Dopest, are you a CLG fan?
I'm not. I'm a TSM fan, but I have I'll shout out to my boy Noah Schmie8. He's been a hardcore CLG fan, and he literally saw the video. He just said, "I'm so depressed."
It's just like, how do you? It's hard to figure out. Like, you just can't be happy about that, right? Like,
yeah, how do you get excited? Get me excited for summer CLG somehow.
Yeah, it's like anything would be. I don't know. It's really tough.
I love Matt Exocean, but like it's just like you could. I don't know. That's not the move I wanted to see if I'm a CLG fan, where I'm like, yeah, we got this now into the playoff hunt.
I think what's tough for me is that CLG, it's so hard to be a CLG fan, and they just don't make it any easier. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I look at that organization right now. Is it's just like they don't do a lot to make you feel hopeful.
Yeah, I don't really know if it was maybe even like budgetarily like why it happened. Like, maybe they just didn't want to look to make any buyouts for other players. They thought that they have somewhat okay contracts for the people they have, probably especially Pobelter, who probably was a little bit desperate, so he probably didn't sign for a massive amount of money. So maybe that has something to do with it, but I just don't really understand why they would run it back, considering like even if all the players are good now, it seems like it's a bad branding decision on top of multiple other bad branding decisions to at least make some form of change, or even bring on a new member to at least create some form of hype. But
this is like so like, to your point, like, I don't know what they would do to make me excited, but like, and that's why I think you often see teams in traditional sports just like fire the head coach randomly, even though it's a fine head coach. You know, they'll just like, anything to make our fans think we're doing something. Like, so I don't think like CLG should have done that, but it is like, without roster changes and things like that, it's hard to make fans feel like there's like, maybe you don't think you're gonna win, you know, summer or anything, but at least there's progress for fans. There's just nothing.
Yeah,
like maybe it's unlikely, but they like at least a decent part of the community still likes Dardoch. They could have thought about bringing him, even if it was only to put him on Academy. They could have maybe picked up Viper because some people had problems with Ruin. I think there's some changes they could have made that maybe would have quelled the confusion, but at least anybody I know that's a CLG fan that I've talked to is just like is endlessly disappointed, and it feels bad for them.
but you know what's interesting? I'm not surprised by this. Are you like, Mark, when you
Not really.
If I told you at the end of spring split, guess what? CLG makes no changes before summer. Would you be surprised by
I'd
me
take
saying
that bet. Yeah,
Like,
I would take that bet for sure.
You'd take the bet saying you would expect them to make changes?
Oh no, I would expect them not to.
Yeah,
I would. Yeah.
Like, it just,
I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we beat up CLG a lot on here. It's out of love. We want them to be good again.
Yeah.
I don't know what they could have done, which is why it's kind of like even more depressing to talk about. Where, like, I think the caller has some good points about like bringing some people in through Academy, but you also have to be careful about those kinds of messages that you're sending internally to your 5-man. Like, is Wiggly scared for his job? Is Ruin? Now, you could argue that they should be, but you know, like, any roster move will also put pressure on the existing roster. And so like signing Dardoch just for a splash, if you're not trying to light a fire under Wiggly's ass, is just probably a dangerous move to do.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Somebody in the Twitch chat said, so Pancon Chocolate says, one of CLG streamers said that they were going to release all their streamers. I saw that thread, but then Tafo commented in it and said that they were not releasing all of them. They were keeping some of them, and they have a different strategy or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Oh, I see it's pinned. CLG Summer Split update. The top comment is,
there's no update.
The top comment is, well, all I can do is be hopeful, but I have to say this is uninspiring as fuck.
Yeah.
That's like the most optimistic comment you can get right now.
Yeah. I don't
Pretty
know. This
much.
again. The sad thing is, I like a lot of the people over at CLG, their staff and stuff, and so it's tough because I want to be critical of the org, and I am, but it sucks, and I kind of feel bad for the people that are working over there because, as much as it sucks to be a fan of CLG, what's it like working at that organization where it just feels like they can't do things that are exciting? I don't know. It's just tough.
I can't imagine what's like being a player right now too for the team.
Yeah.
I will say. Sorry, you go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I can see them making 8th and making the playoffs. Like I actually don't think that's totally like out there. Depending on what happens with Immortals and some other teams, I think they can make the climb into playoffs. I don't think they'll get anything done really in there, but I don't think that they're automatic 10th. I guess is the positive spin I can put on it.
I don't know if anybody's ever automatic 10th because there's
Golden
sometimes
Guardians
just a race
for sure.
to the bottom for some of these teams, right? Like it's fascinating sometimes to see how much. On the other hand, I keep forgetting this. I think CLG won 3 games, right? Last split, I think it was 3. So maybe they are.
I think it's 3.
It was 3. They had 1 win. Pobelter joined. They picked up 2 pretty quick, and then didn't win again the rest of the season.
I think.
Yeah.
Maybe.
They had the one.
Maybe they are automatic 10th place. Although
I mean, I
Dignitas is like burning their home down, so it's just crazy.
Yeah, Dignitas is in wholesale mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
LS says they won 1, but 1 was with Soraka, so their record's really 2-15. There's just 1 game missing.
Gotcha. Ugh, CLG. All right, whatever. Anyway, Dopus, sorry. Any final thoughts before we move on to the next caller?
Yeah, so the only last thought I had about it, and maybe on the point of you said it might suck a little bit to work at CLG, is the parent company, Madison Square Garden. A lot of people were confused why they didn't post anything in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. Specifically, CLG was the only LCS team that didn't do that, and it was kind of released that it had something to do with Madison Square Garden, specifically saying they didn't want to be involved with any political outreach, which they sent to like players and other staff.
To their credit, they did black out or post like a black image on the Instagram, and then they didn't post on Twitter during that time. But yes, they have avoided. That seems to be, and you got to wonder if that was them just sort of pushing it against MSG's reigns. Yeah. I guess.
I know the players individually did that like Smoothie, but yeah, that's another just like adding onto the pile of just, man, this shit fucking sucks, man.
Yep.
Yeah, that's such fun.
Anyway, thanks Dopus for the call.
Yep, have a great night, guys.
Have a good one. All right.
Peace out.
Let's move on to the next caller. Mark is off to go grab them. Hefty Chen in the chat. Hello, Hefty Chen. Some people are asking why we don't have a guest on. Honestly, I'm just going to be like blunt with you guys. We reached out to a couple people and people just don't really feel comfortable like going out and doing a bunch of content right now, and I kind of understand it. So it's not it's not that we don't have a guest because we didn't try. It's just people opting to not talk.
I spent a lot of time thinking about what I was going to say for that like little 15-minute spiel I did, and I still, like, even now thinking back on it, did not fucking come across any way that I wanted to. So like I understand people who don't want to, they prefer to amplify black voices rather than try and get out here and say their own spiel, especially since a lot of them are not actually public figures like Travis or I. If you're a coach, you're not really. So I don't.
Ghost
I get why people
is here. Ghost Han, have you been on the show before, or are you a sub? Maybe both.
Yeah, I've been on the show like a few times.
Okay, well, great to talk to you. Where are you calling from?
New York City.
How's everything in New York? It seems like it's been a crazy year for that city.
My neighborhood in particular hasn't been hit by any protests or rioting that bad, but I live next to Bushwick, which is near it, but that's more near Barclays Center and the southern part of Manhattan, like Soho, which has been getting like a lot of stuff. Overall, like New York City could be better. The mayor could be doing better. The governor could be doing better. The police could be doing better.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So what I want to talk about is, I said last week, Dig was not a garbage fire. So I want to talk about a team I think will be a garbage fire, which is Immortals.
Okay. I think, by the way, the evidence has only piled up more in favor of Dignitas being we didn't say garbage pile. I thought we said dumpster fire.
And we
Dumpster
weren't
fire.
talking about the team's personnel necessarily. when
Yeah,
we
we're
said
talking
that,
about like they seem to be in a disastrous downward
It might still
fire.
apply, but we didn't say it that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Fair enough.
I think that it just seems like everything's melting over there. But anyway, sorry, continue. We were talking about Immortals.
Yeah, so I think Immortals is in a very poor position for this coming summer split. For I think like a wide variety of reasons. I think the solo laners specifically, like we have a mid laner that has been performing too well, that came from Europe, from not even like an LEC team, from like an EU Masters team, I believe. And then we have a top laner who's been in the league a long time, whose career basically ended in Europe, and then he went to, Immortals. And also, like, I just don't see that much of a motivation on from some of the players too, because at this point, it's just becoming like a bit of a French retirement home.
French retirement home. I mean, sorry, is any of this... I mean, it sounds like a lot of what you're echoing are just the concerns that people had with the team in spring.
Prior, but what's happening right now is we saw their performance now, and Immortals has not made many changes. To me, I think their academy is actually pretty good, right?
Well, I've heard that they're not using Apollo and Hakuho as well. So it's...
Really?
Yes. This is what I've heard, is that right now, Xmithie, Apollo, and Hakuho are not in their scrims.
Interesting.
Who is then? Who's?
Yeah.
I gotta look up their academy team again really quick.
Yeah, I guess we
So
would...
Apollo came from academy, so is it
Yeah.
all tech back or?
I don't know. I've just heard that those three players are not seeming to be on the main lineup at the moment. I don't know if they're experimenting without them or what is happening, but yeah.
I think as their mid laner in their academy, Insanity, though, is better than Ica and should for sure be given a chance. And if from what it sounds like, they should do the fighting for your spot type thing that Dig is at least doing. I know that's like a bit of like a meltdown over there in terms of players and stuff like that. But I think Immortals, if they don't change anything, they will be in 10th place. They will 100% be in 10th place. CLG will even be better than them, because there's motivational problems from what I heard about the Xmithie stuff. So as an Ica are on the downward trajectory. I thought bot lane was doing okay, but those might be getting switched out. So I'm just concerned about the team and not changing things. But if they're changing things, then I don't know what the direction that they should be heading in is.
I wonder if... So I remember I did an interview with Xmithie, and I think it was after they didn't make it to playoffs, right? Or did they just lose in the very beginning of it? Yeah. So it was when they didn't make it to playoffs. I think the interview I did with him had him basically saying something about how, like, he really feels like he needs to see change because he's not sure how much longer he can keep doing this, like all the losing and not being in a good place. And I wonder if that has reflected either in motivational issues or, we don't know. Perhaps he went to his team and asked for a trade and the team declined, and now he's not interested in...
Then.
Yeah, he's just not interested in performing. Again, this is incredible speculation, okay? Like, I don't want people to take this as...
I think you mean incredibly speculative, unless you're saying that your speculation is incredible.
It is incredible that I am reaching this speculatively.
I don't know if you want... What's modifying what here?
Speculation. But I think... I wonder what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It might just be the kind of thing where Immortals is like... I don't know why you would punt the season already, but if they want to develop younger talent, like, I don't know who they might have got on Academy. Maybe I've just missed it, but I just tried to look and I didn't see anything. But if they have someone younger that they're going to put in there with Insanity, and they want as an Ica or yeah, so as an Ica to stay as their imports, then I get it a little bit. I think so as is still pretty good. Like when he joined, I had the problem of like I don't think Soaz is a primary carry, but he's still a good player. You know, like Let Me would be an example of that. Like, he can still be a good player. So I definitely think that a little bit that his role on the team is not. He did play Camille sometimes and did try to hard carry, and those were some of the few games that they were able to win was off his back. But I don't think he, you know, that's not what the role he should be playing every single game. You know, he's not the Shy or something.
Yeah, like isn't like Immortals like on average like one of the oldest teams in LCS? Like I don't think they're investing enough in young talent right now, even on their academy.
Yeah, I think I always get wary of that type of reasoning because people
We don't
flame
know what's
people
old.
whenever they
We
won't
don't
get
even-
like experienced players or whatever, and they flame people when they get players that like in a lot of cases having an older like TL was the oldest team in the LCS, I think for the full 2 years that they were existing. So I don't think necessarily like the age of the players or the amount of veterans they have is necessarily indicative of like whether or not the team is good or trying or something, you know.
Yeah, I can understand the point that like if you find yourself uncompetitive, the best thing to do is to put in the younger guys and give them more playing time. You do see this in traditional sports.
I have that fear because like I was a Brooklyn Net fan back in the day, and when the whole Paul Pierce and the Kevin Garnett
Oh,
thing
yeah.
happened, it kind of just scarred me for life a little bit. Because like I just feel like that you need to keep investing in young talent. Even the academy doesn't have that much young talent. I think the youngest is Potluck, who was born in '98. And I think that's what academy should be, and that's why. And like obviously like Diggs academy is weird, but like Immortals academy has good players. I think they should switch them out and just give them a shot, which they did for the bot lane, to be fair. But do it for jungle, do it for mid lane, because I think Insanity really does specifically deserve a time over Ica.
I think also young talent is. I mean, like Gate and Alltech aren't necessarily young. I think that if they deserve a shot or not can be separate from age or anything like that.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yep.
all right. Any final thoughts, Ghost Hunt? Anything you want to shout out?
Nah, just I hope the LA police chief that said that weird stuff gets fired.
Did you watch the Zoom call after?
Yeah, that was hilarious.
That was some good shit right there.
I yield my time.
Yeah.
I guess on that note, I yield my time on this show.
There are a lot of good ones.
Thanks, Ghost Hunt, for the call.
Have a good one.
Yeah, have a good one. All right. 4 more callers. We'll take one, and then we'll do our first break of the evening.
Okay.
I saw LS wanted to come on. I told him, or was down to come on. I told him come up with a take, and we'll grab him for a call. Could be in response to something he hears here if he wants to disagree with it. What I will caution is him calling in with a big expansive take on a very specific LCK or LPL issue. I think is perhaps this is not the show for that. So I would just caution him on that. Bubbles is here. Bubbles, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Parker, Colorado.
Parker or Barker?
Parker, Parker.
I turned you up a bit. You were a little quiet. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I'm calling in because I feel like TSM giving up Dardoch and bringing in Spica is only going to make it so they can't improve and are still not going to be able to be close to winning Summer.
Sorry, it's TSM bringing in
Spica.
Okay, gotcha. So they won't be close to winning. Where do you think they will be?
I feel like, if anything, they may finish 4th or 5th, but I don't feel they're finishing top 3.
They don't go to Worlds because their jungle position is not strong enough with Spica in it.
Correct.
Mark?
Sorry, I was spaced out. I just saw the LS stuff in Pleb Topics.
Yeah.
So
the take to refresh to let you know is
I heard Dardoch was good, Spica bad.
Spica bad, TSM not in top 3.
Top 3.
So
C9.
yeah, this is where you have to kind of Like the
'Cause,
problem is, I don't know if any other team. My concern, Bubbles, is I don't look at any of the other teams outside of C9 and say, well, like they're definitely
top
getting
three for
top
sure,
three,
yeah.
right? Like, I don't, obviously we got FlyQuest and EG who finished top 3 last time, and I just don't I don't think they have a defensible enough positions to stop somebody else from sneaking into one of those spots, right? And so that's why it's difficult to say, TSM can't find their way in, because I just don't. I don't know if there's
So-
that strong enough a competition.
Yeah, I'll disagree on the top 3 point just off the lack of other competition that is like surefire top 3 to push them out. But I think I also might disagree with the point that Speaker will make TSM worse. I think it really depends on how the other lanes function together. There's something like, obviously we talked about it a little bit, but there were more problems with TSM and Dardoch between the members and stuff like that than they showed publicly that people have in the past, but they were still there. Peter Douglas, another strong voice. He probably has a way that he wants to play the game. I'm sure Spica will be in a lot of ways a lot easier to kind of move around the map as the rest of the team wants. And I don't know how TSM is going to play. Is Double If going to be played around heavily? Is it still going to be Broken Blade like was kind of traditionally? And on top of that, if the rest of the team plays well, as long as Speak is not a dumpster fire, I feel like this team should still be better. I mean, it's partially falling for the big names on this roster, but like Double Lift, Biofrost, and Bjergsen together, I still kind of get those 2016, 2017 flashbacks of awesomeness. It is Broken Blade now compared to Hanser, but I don't think that's a massive change or anything. Svenskar and Suspica sounds like a big downgrade to me. But they don't need to go 16-2 or 17-1, excuse me, to make top 3 in playoffs and do stuff like that. So that's why I'm not bought in. I think that they can still be good. They'll be better than they were last split, even if Spica is not significantly better than Dardoch or anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really hard to say with TSM. I think because the league is in such a weird place right now, with staying at like everybody playing from home. You've got, I think, a generally fairly weak league compared to previous years, at least in terms of competition. You've got C9 that's just so far ahead of the pack. It just makes it so difficult for me to feel confident in any prediction saying something like TSM will not make top 3, Bubbles, any thoughts?
Yeah. I just feel like with how Blabber played last season, because I am a big C9 fan, but Blabber kind of showed this is 2 splits in a row that
they're kind of like semesters.
Worst word, yeah.
But that the junglers play a huge impact on the power of a team, and I feel that Speak is just not going to be able to bring enough to the table with not enough stage time. And if they're online, they may have more of a chance with Spica because he won't have to play in front of a crowd. But I still don't feel I feel there are still better junglers on the table that...
Like who?
I feel Smithy...
Is he on the table?
He's not on the table for a trade, but I feel like giving up Dardoch, and I've heard Dardoch wasn't comfortable there, and I understand that portion of it. I just don't know if Spica was the right move. I haven't heard a lot of junglers that are on the table for trade. I just don't know where Spica fits in because I don't feel he's shown enough.
I mean, that's the challenge, right? Like, I don't think that TSM, and I don't have any inside information or anything like that, but I don't think that they would have Spica starting if they had access to somebody who was a stronger player or like a longer veteran. I'm sure if they could get access, like, it's hard for me to imagine that they didn't reach out to Immortals and ask about Xmithy. I think that it's difficult for me to imagine a world where that didn't happen. And for whatever reason, Immortals is ready to trade him if they're not going to play him. I don't know. But Or maybe TSM isn't willing to pay the money that Immortals thinks he should, but I don't know. I think it's an interesting situation for sure.
Definitely.
You want to?
Any final thoughts? Anything you want to say before we move on to our next caller?
Just shout out to Draft Buffs and Alienware, and I'm glad this show's around.
Yeah, thank you. Bubbles, have you made your Draft Buff account yet?
I'm actually, as soon as I get done on here, I'm gonna go do it. I've been excited for something that's LCS Draft again. I did it when it first came out. When it went away, I kind of was very sad.
Thank you. I appreciate a plug. Anyway, have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Speaking of sponsors, we're going to take a moment to chat about Alienware. There's an Alienware PC behind me. I think we might be down to the final couple of Hextech chests and keys, but I think you can go check them out still at alienwarearena.com/Travis if you haven't made an account yet and you live in North America. Go check out alienwarearena.com/Travis. You can get a free Hextech chest and key just for signing up. And if you're having any issues with it, which I know a couple people had a couple issues, maybe with not getting the text message or something, but tweet at Alienware and they can help you out. But other than that, I just want to once more shout out all the cool stuff that is available over at alienware.com/Travis. That's my link if you're unfamiliar with it. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat. And it's also, by the way, in the description of the YouTube video if you're paying attention to that. You can also use Travis 10 off to save 10% on their stuff, but they have new Alienware Auroras that are now available. And in the past, they were limited to some of the higher end specs when they first announced it, but now I think as of the end of last week, you can now build out the rest of those. So be sure to check out alienware.com/Travis. Use code Travis10 off. And again, if you want a Hextech chest and key, you can use alienwarearena.com. Two separate links. alienwarearena.com, alienware.com/Travis. But you can go grab a Hextech chest and key for free, which is pretty swell. Oh, yeah, by the way, I loaned Kelby. So Kelby has been quarantining in Montreal. And I actually think it turned out to be a brilliant idea, given how everything ended up going in the U.S. But I loaned him my Area 51M. And he just said in chat, I've been using it since mid-March while in Canada, and it is amazing. And so that's a review from somebody who gets a cut of my Alienware deal, but does not get paid directly. Anyway, thanks to Alienware for sponsoring the show.
What are you trying to make with that?
What?
It's just like, listen to this guy who gets a cut of my deal talk about how great Alienware is.
But I mean, the thing is, Kelby's not the type of person to say that if he was having issues with it the whole time. He loves, like, he plays Siege and all these like shooters and stuff that actually do require. When we were playing Valorant, where you actually do need a powerful setup, and he's been in love with how good the frame rate and everything is on it. So, all
right, I'll let it go. Kelby's protest.
You'll let go my sponsor plug.
Yeah, we'll let it go. I'll let it slide.
That helps pay you.
I was waiting for you to turn it back around on me.
My sponsor plug.
I thought it was a layup slam dunk for you to turn it back around on me, and then you didn't right away. I was like, oh, okay, I guess we'll move on.
Red Rain, Final Fantasy 14. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Followed up by the official Bubbles, who I assume was the person that was just on the call, who also gifted 5 subs. Thanks everyone for subbing. As sirens go on in my background, I hear so many sirens in the city this week. It's been crazy.
Yeah, it's a layup slam dunk, Raz. You go for the layup, you miss, rolls off the rim, the other guy gets the follow up.
Hey Mark, maybe we grab the next call.
Alley oop slam, whatever. Fuck all.
Can you go grab the next call?
It's LS. He's muted right now. LS, if you're listening.
LS, can you unmute in the waiting room? We need you to unmute. What do you want, Kelby?
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
I literally bought one of these laptops because my experience with it was so good.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. No. I have a desktop at home with an i9-9900K in it and a 2080 Ti. When I came to Canada, I literally barely noticed a performance difference in using the 51M between my like super beefed out desktop. and because of that experience, I literally spend my own money on it. So I just wanted to say
it's a good call out. Thanks, Kelby, for
Enjoy the
dropping
show.
into the channel uninvited.
Have a good time.
see ya. Gotta change some settings on this Discord. We have imposters coming in. Mark's getting LS on right now, by the way. John G365, thank you for the 12 months. Blair, thank you for giving the sub to LS. And I think that's Pancon Chocolate also subscribed. Mark and Ellis must be having a heated discussion because here we go.
Unmute, but I don't know if he can hear me in the waiting room when I went to try and talk to him because I heard him laughing at something.
You hear Ellis laughing, but he's not talking to you. Okay. I don't wonder what he's laughing at. Sorry, this is not normally how it goes.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, LS. Welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
Korea.
Great to hear.
First time caller or long time?
What do you?
Yeah, I think this is my first time calling.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
I mean, I wrote in the chat that I could talk about NA infrastructure and academy and like disagreements that are present within the teams. Like I talked about this on Pog State, but it was omitted from the final cut. And I think this is interesting because Apto, for instance, has recently started streaming on Twitch TV. And he had a
I think it's just
segment...
called Twitch now, by the way. They dropped the TV.
Okay. Well, really?
That's been that way for like 3 years.
They dropped the TV URL.
Forever. Yeah, it's in the URL, but you don't say like I went to lolesports.com. I guess you maybe do. Whatever. Anyway, continue, LS.
What's your fucking point is that?
So Apto actually recently talked about like coaching and infrastructural problems as well, and cited that there's like a need for change of it, even inside of Korea. And I think that even in Korea, it's a area that is not talked about a lot, but Korea's academy and infrastructure system, barring the coaching staffs and managements, I think is actually way more set up than anything EU or NA has seen. For instance, Gen G has 4 teams. Most people don't know that. T1 has, I think, 3. I believe APK has 3. I think Afrika has 5. And these are players that are all Diamond 1 plus on the ladder. So lots of unknown players are like locked up and a part of academy teams with internal scrims and with staff and like other stuff. And I think that NA's approach to academy and infrastructure, because you guys were talking about it earlier on the stream, I think is obviously really poor. And I've been pretty outspoken about it in the last like 2 months. I had like the round table, I had the talk with Hotshot, and it doesn't seem like anything's getting fixed. And I think it's even more sad that people who do exist, who probably should be looked at, and I'm not talking about like the toxic ones or the successful streamers that wouldn't join pro scene anyway, don't get noticed. And there's no way for them to get through the door.
Okay, so a couple different things there. One, I know you've been talking about this for two months and you haven't seen it change. I gotta tell you, man, I've been a personality and ranted about many things for many years, and people don't listen. I don't expect change within 2 months on League of Legends esports.
Yeah, but
it's
no one listens to you. People listen to LS. So when he says these are things that people should change, I would expect people to listen a little bit more. So I have a question a little bit about the Korean infrastructure. You said that they have internal scrims. Are they on site or are they like remote? Just so like I'm wondering like what they do.
I believe 4th team and 5th team. Not every single org has 4th and 5th, but 3rd forward is on site. 3rd, I think, commutes. 2nd lives on site. 1st lives on site. And 3rd, I believe, commutes.
The only North American team I know recently who has had multiple teams, because back when there was like Challenger scene, Steve Liquid 112 had like LOL Pro and Curse Academy and stuff. But the only other team since then that I know of is C9. People are saying
C9 has a couple different, right?
Yeah,
100 so. Has 3.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Do you know what? I was about to say, do you know what they're doing with them, or is it like are they getting internal scrims? Because I feel like that's a big part of what, like, if you just sign 5 young guys, is that just trying to, like get first dibs at them if they actually pop off, or is that okay? Papa Smithy's in chat and says yes, they're getting internal scrims. I think so that's what that yes is.
They seem to play in like tournaments, like NA online tournaments thing. I think there was a tweet made by Tenacity once, who was recently almost like rank 1, right, on the ladder, or maybe he hit it. I'm not sure. So I think 100 Thieves is doing a really good job there. 100 Thieves also has the facility. I'm unsure if they're gonna become on site, but I imagine that their LCS and Academy are on site. TSM has
no one's on site right now.
Oh, really? Everyone's home?
Yeah.
Well, he means just because Corona.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I believe TSM has 3, right? They have LCS Academy Junior.
More do
they still have the junior stuff? Because I know they did it. Like the problem thing is, part of the reason it's hard to track this is I feel like I hear orgs announce the stuff and then quietly stop doing it pretty soon after, so it's difficult to keep up with what's actually happening at any given
Someone
point
in
time.
Twitch chat says that they have a few players but no official team.
Yeah.
Or like not a full team, which is like at that point I don't know what you're doing other than what are they doing? Watching scrims and sitting in on calls?
Established 1919 says the junior stuff isn't a team, it's contract jailing prospects. So actually that does bring up my next point, which is, Ellis, is there ever any conversation around, because I think in North America we talk a lot about, people were frustrated that Cloud9 Academy had a bunch of players on it that were not able to join other teams or whatever, and it created this big discussion. Jack was saying he wasn't getting offers, other people were implying that he was, and so a lot of people talked a lot about, like, we've got great talent but it's now stuck in these organizations who don't want to trade them or something. So does that ever happen in Korea, do you think? Is there ever an issue where you're like, wow, these guys have 25 players or something signed to their org?
I think it does happen in Korea. I think that actually the fact that there's so many academy systems, one of the things that interestingly got brought up in the LCK, when a lot of players that were very known for aggressive play and very known for trying to take trades and stuff, they became much more reserved in the middle of the split and towards the end of the split. And one of the behind the scenes comments from some Korean like pro friends that I have that are friends with them that would talk with them basically said that they're afraid because there's so many trainees that are Grandmaster and Challenger, and the way that Korea works is if you're just performing bad, you're just going to get kicked. They don't really care. So what ends up happening is these star level, elite level players don't want to be the reason for a loss, and so they just start playing more reserved. And I think this cycles back to something that becomes very toxic, where they're now playing with job security, whereas Korea, I don't think, has ever really been that way. And I think it's a byproduct of how many academy teams these LCK teams have. And with the announcement of franchising, a lot of the teams that didn't have academy teams have now begun to pick them up. There's also Western players in some of these Korean academy teams, and it's completely unknown and it's never talked about. There is a French mid laner on Gen G. Never talked about.
We have a French mid laner.
Oh my god.
What?
It's a Ica more or less.
No. But Western players being in China and Korea, I think, isn't really talked about. There's actually an NA jungler who is 17, who is challenger on NA. He's also challenger on Ionia, and I believe he's grandmaster on Korea. And he made an LFT tweet for Academy or something in North America, and no one responded to it. And he had like 100 followers on Twitter. No one noticed. No one cared. And I remember bringing this up to Lena when I talked to her when I was doing the talk with Doublelift. And I don't know, nothing ever came from it. Like, how can a player like that not get picked up? No one talks about him. No one notices him. And then he just comes right back to China. What the fuck are you doing? And I'm not referring to TSM. Just what the fuck is everyone doing?
Right. It's like if we don't have, I've talked a lot about population and how that can potentially affect like the amount of diamonds in the rough that you can even find. But like that makes it even more egregious when you fucking fail to find one.
But to shout out, like we have been trying to do more of this as a league and region recently, right? Like I think the closer pickup, the Broken Blade pickup before it, like Papa Smithy very clearly has been finding.
Yeah, but
some players.
To Ellis's point, like this is this was a North American player or a Chinese player who came over looking for a team when you said he had a high server account? You said it was a North American player, right?
Caucasian, North American. I don't know if he actually speaks Chinese.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
But he would boot camp and play in China. There's a 15-year-old German kid that is on JDG Academy, third team. I believe he's a jungler. He also plays cross server on Korea, and he's Diamond 1 Master. And he's asked me, like, what do I do to get into national teams? And I actually talked to his dad because his dad signed him out of school. And no one knows about the kid. And I've tried to talk to teams, and they just don't fucking listen. And I'm like, if and this will maybe sound egotistical, but if I can't get a fucking team to listen, I think with my list of like scouted players that I've championed in the past, like I don't fucking know what needs to happen.
So this is something that I talked about last offseason in North America, about just like, where is our budgets going? Like whenever I see these massive team facilities, like, yes, you should shell out for your players and give them, you know, your the best that they can get. But like, why do you not have $1 million scouting budget as well of some kind? Like shave $1 million off your $40 million facility.
$50 million. I love making fun of the TSM $50 million facility.
Take $1 million of that and pay people like LS and others. Get like a little network going of people in the know. Pay people high in solo queue for information about who's standing out to them, and like have a system prepared for that kind of stuff. Which is why it's always insane when you like, you know, talk about people not getting scouted. And I think the same can apply to some of these third string teams, about bringing them on site. Like if you have a $50 million budget, can you not afford to bring 5 more people in who probably don't require much in the terms of salary to train up or something? And is that not a better long-term investment than, I don't know, another fridge or something? I don't know.
I think a lot of academy players and even solo queue players that are really good could actually be coached to a level of with proper infrastructure, proper scrim setups, and proper practice. I think that they could be brought up to a level to where they could play in LCS, and the nature of LCS, where players play more reserved, they're safer on stage than they are in scrims and other stuff. I think that they could grapple with the players, and you wouldn't notice that much of a difference. And whether or not that's healthy or not, I think it's a different topic, but I think it brings a lot of credence to the fact that these players would be eligible to play and you wouldn't notice. And I think that there's been examples of this from academy players that have stepped into the LCS, done reasonably fine, and nothing gets talked about again, because everything is always cited as different reasons.
Yeah,
for
I
why
was
they
going to ask,
didn't
do you feel like the LCS Academy system has been good at finding talent and like a good thing for the region?
No, I think it's really bad. And from stuff that I know, like behind the scenes, of course, I think that nepotism gets a lot more scary when it enters into academy. And I think that there's also like a lot of scary comments that get said in academy, where academy players are complacent with not moving up to LCS, and they're fine just getting the academy paychecks and like the housing provided and whatnot.
I talked to a couple GMs when I was going on this rant in the off season, and they were saying like, it's like sometimes academy players just like aren't scrimming, like, and it's not just on the players, it's also on the staff. Like, and this is why I think it's, you know, it's such a hard problem to fix, is even if, you know, I'm talking about, oh, spend more money. Well, you can't buy competence if it doesn't exist right now, or there's a larger demand than there's a supply. And so,
go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
I was gonna say all I was saying was that like, I heard about like all these things where it's like, these guys aren't playing, they're not scrimming, springs get canceled all the time, someone has diarrhea, they don't play, you know, like it's insane how often academy is kind of doing nothing.
Yeah, and I guess that's what my concern is that building out extra teams whenever we seem to not be able to do a great job of supporting our first layer outside the LCS, making second and third layers, I worry like won't be beneficial until we have like a better system in place for academy.
Yes.
So I guess that's where I would want to see teams focus before they like add third or fourth tier teams. And maybe you can do both at the same time, but like, yeah, that's just my concern.
Well, so like LS made good points about scouting and finding better players and bringing them in. I admit I may not have watched the full roundtable with Hotshot. Confession. Did you guys talk about like the more coaching staff infrastructure side of like the
Yeah.
problems that you see? Because you were talking about some of the problems with the Korean coaching. So I was wondering what you thought and problems were and solutions were for North America.
So interestingly, I had a video earlier on in the year when I was doing all the coach streams and when I was casting LCK and whatnot, where I talked about coaching problems when it came to strategical coaches and analysts. And after I made this, there was actually the interview on Reddit with the Shy where it was translated. He said pretty similar stuff. And then just 4 days ago, I could send you guys the clip on Discord or something. Apto went into a rant about Korean coaches.
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, he went into a rant basically saying their title coach should be stripped from them. They shouldn't call themselves coaches. They have authority without earning it. They have no reason to have the power that they do, and they should be name changed to caretaker or like maid, because they don't do anything. And he was basically saying that in that way they should be blamed and flamed by like the community, because they are given power and authority to override things, and yet they never do it. Or they do it for nepotism reasons or job security reasons, and that's obviously unhealthy. And I think that this is way more worse in the West than what people know, due to the fact that you can't find publicly available content of most coaches and analysts. And when you do see behind the scenes things, it looks really bad. Why are the players basically self-coaching?
What do you think of cases? What do you think of G2? Because supposedly, like, their coaching system is more, he just acts as like a facilitator. Grabs just acts as like a mediator almost in that conversation, and then the players tend to self-coach a little bit more, or like the team is more coached by collective voice, I guess.
I think that I think when you have 5 super elite level players that all have a like-minded will to win, and when you have players that are going to actively seek out content and seek out, new ways to do things and whatnot, I think that's fine. But not every single team has 5 players that are arguably top 3 in their roles and even off roles. Not every team has that. That's just not normal. So I think that G2 is an outlier, not really a rule, but I do think that G2 could be better if there was also someone else even there, like to come in and play that role. I don't think that they need it because, first off, no one else has it going on, and then the secondary thing is their players are just way too good. I think that if you remove T1's coaching staff, T1's still probably going to win LCK. I think if you remove Gen G's coaching staff, Gen G's still probably going to place high. Like their players are just really good. And when you have interviews come out that go against popular consensus, like IG saying that they don't even talk to each other in the same language, or sometimes Rookie won't translate between the players. There's no communication issues because League of Legends ultimately is a language in itself. You either get it or you don't. And I think that when you have Chinese and Korean players come out basically saying that there's no feedback from coaches because there's no translator, I mean, this speaks a lot more credence to something is going on.
I just think it's an interesting discussion. I'm glad you're raising it, and it's one that I feel like a lot of people have been having for the past year. I almost feel like League of Legends coaching has been kind of having an identity crisis since. Like I really think back to that Rift Rivals Hotline League we did, Mark, where like Doublelift and the EU coaches had this really big discussion about the state of coaching across the different regions and stuff, and it just makes me think.
One thing that happened with like North America that I was there for was like, as infrastructure was leveling up, people looked to traditional sports a lot for like modeling what it was going to be like, and I think people took that too far, and they're like, look at professional coaches in football. They control, like Bill Belichick controls everything. We're all going to find our own Bill Belichick, and he's going to like control everything. He's going to be the genius. He's going to do all this shit. He's going to tell the players exactly how to play. And every team's going to find their own guy who's going to be like this. And it was like what I was saying about the supply and demand thing. And I've heard a lot of players still echoing this, even as recently as last split, veteran players who are like, so many coaches come in and they're expected to be the solution to the team's problems. And they can't possibly provide that, but they either are expected to or think they can. and it makes things not go well. And there's a lot of like nitpicking, hindsight bias. You'll hear a lot of players in North America complain about, where they're like spending 30 minutes on like if this gank was a good idea, or like should they have fought this bot lane 2v2 with like given their ward coverage. And like those are maybe fine conversations, but they get derailed for 30 minutes of nitpicking.
Yeah, and so interestingly, one of the hot topics that I think is sort of new, because if you guys have been following, there's like the chess boom right now on Twitch. And one of the parallels that I really like is sort of like paraphrasing, I think, something Hikaru said, but also something that like I've echoed over the years. A lot of people think that coaches have a lot of game knowledge because or that you can watch games and understand really what is going on, and then somehow manipulate that and then analyze it and feed it back to the players, right? But when you watch one of these top chess streams like Hikaru, Magnus Carlsen, Botez, any of these big chess streamers that explain moves to you, if you watch the AlphaGo documentary, you can understand what happens after the fact. You can digest and you can know what they just told you. And then you can probably play it back shortly thereafter the fact. But there's a difference between knowing what they just told you and processing what they just told you and accepting it versus understanding and discerning if there's errors in it or the foundation upon which it's founded, which is why you can't just watch these chess streams and then suddenly magically get good. It's why you can't go on YouTube, watch 1,000 hours of chess, and then suddenly become a master or something. And I think that in coaching and analysis, it's the same goddamn thing. After a play happens, someone can process it, know it, and then, for the most part, tell you what happened, right? That's not game knowledge. Can you watch something happen, unfold, and then discern whether or not it was right or wrong? And can you say what most likely was going to happen 10 seconds in advance, 15, 20 seconds? Can you lay out the groundwork for what causes it to happen? And I think that in coaching and analysis in League of Legends, these questions aren't brought up enough, and the people that are supposed to be doing this don't because they can't. And thus, what ends up happening is most things get player-led. And anytime you see behind-the-scenes footage and behind-the-scenes videos like that teams are doing in content, it's mostly player-led discussions. And coaches can obviously process and know things that are happening. It's fucking useless. Things don't change that way, which is actually why the roster shuffle in LCS of all the coaching staffs and analysts this last season, 2020, is a joke. Because apparently these players that have or people that have team hopped for so many different teams with no identity, no clarity, like what Travis was saying, they're brought into this team and everyone expects change. Fucking from what? There was no identity on it ever throughout the course of all these other teams and these histories and instances, right? And then you get really big topics that don't get talked about until a mad malding person on Twitter goes on a fucking campaign. And then even then it get, like, and obviously I'm memeing the Leandro Morello thing here, but like, why does it take that? Like, what are people doing? Apparently nothing, like, I mean, what the fuck?
I definitely agree. I mean, a good point for people who, not just chess, but like, about people kind of like hindsight and being able to say this was right or wrong, but then talking about having the knowledge to know that beforehand or to know what to take away from it. Like, I realized I fell into this a little bit too at different points in my life, just like watching film critiques and like the amount of people who can dissect a scene and be like, oh, this was bad, or this plot was written poorly, or this and this, but then they probably can't write for shit. And like, they can't actually, they couldn't give good actionable feedback to like actually go and do the same thing themselves, or be even like a critique partner for someone else to do that. Versus just like plot out a couple basic things. So that is a problem that is something that extends everywhere. Is like your ability to tell if something was good or bad or right or wrong is not necessarily the same things that you need to be actionable and constructive with it. But it does raise the problem of like, I still like, this is something I've always struggled with. Like, I don't know how to fix it necessarily. Like, all these people, whether or not they're effective or not, like, what do you do to increase the talent pool of the coaching staff and things like that?
Yeah, this was and stop me if I'm ever being long-winded. I feel like I have to do this because
the more you talk, the less I need to. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I was about to say. Okay. I mean, I just got to sit back for the past 5 minutes. So
my cat's up on my lap now, dude. I don't give a shit. I'll leave.
I will say, this is a call out as to why we tend to do less having other show hosts on, because at a certain point in time, it stops being Hotline League and people calling it, and it becomes another show entirely. But no, continue. I'm not trying to cut you off.
Okay. I just feel like I have to be long-winded because people like to clip out of context, and then I don't want to leave gray area for bystanders. So that's just why I feel like I've developed this habit to add lots of clarity and try to answer over-explain. Seems to be like a defense. So I think that what Mark is talking about, like about film critics and like other things, this is very prevalent. And one of the things that I've tried to do recently is pull people into stream calls and then ask them to explain something before it happens. And oftentimes you'll get like a blank face or like a blank stare because they can't. They don't have the wherewithal to do it. And that's a really big problem. And so this ends up, one of the things that I would list for viewers and you guys here, I don't know if you've looked into it, I had a talk with one of the top Hearthstone streamers about this very topic when it comes to...
Which Hearthstone streamer?
Navi.
Oh.
Navi, I think he's one of the big Legend of Runeterra streamers. And he actually said, use Bloom's taxonomy as a talking basis for this point. And it's really, really interesting at how Bloom's taxonomy can actually show fault in coaching and analysis, even within League of Legends. Because if you look at like the triangle or like the formation and stuff, it sort of makes sense. You go into what builds into it and whatnot. And I think it's just really, really, really good.
Yeah, I totally knew what you were talking about, and I didn't just Google it. Yeah.
Okay.
Creating is the highest part of the pyramid, guys, and that's the biggest thing is getting to that top part of the pyramid.
Yeah.
Did I contribute to the conversation?
You did. No, the Bloom's taxonomy thing is interesting because the creation thing, in a way, is like the Leandri Morello debate, right? Because if you really know what's going on there, you should be able to break it down for what it is, and then create something, right? But you get to that by being able to apply the reasoning that you're stating, analyze it, evaluate it, and then create it, right? And even at the end, you're gonna have people that don't totally get what's going on, but like, why did no one build Leandri's until Nemesis and Larson? Which coincidentally, I mean, obviously my relationship with Nemesis as a friend is like public, whatnot. That was the turning point in LEC, was Larson and Nemesis starting to build Leandri's. And then more and more people started following. And even when it first started, there was lots of people dissenting against it. Now, interestingly enough, look at LPL, look at LCK. There's no Leandri's. Just fucking none. And I've talked to some of the Western staffs on Korean and Chinese teams. They basically say they just can't get through. They can't like get the point across to the players or the coaching staff that they're supposed to feed the data to. And it's no fucking surprise that like itemizations that are understood now in the West to an extent, like sitting on Oblivion Orb or upgrading to Morello before a pivotal team fight because it's most bang for your buck, or thinking about these things like critically, is absent in LCK LPL. And I don't think that there's coincidence because LCK LPL, there's no social medias. Everything's an echo chamber. You can't directly interact with the players of the teams. The only thing that exists is Facebook. And if you say something negative, you get blocked or deleted your comment.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, continue.
No, that was it. I mean, I think that the devil's in the details, you know?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Like even though I was on the other side of the Morello's Leandri's debate, like, the amount of time that went into working on that spreadsheet, finding all the kinks and the bugs, and then finding the points I was trying to make. And I don't even necessarily think I made all of them perfectly and cogently, but like that was such a difficult and time-consuming process. But that is like what you should be expecting from coaching staffs and stuff. Is like the players don't have time to build a fucking 40-hour spreadsheet and do all that math. Someone should do that and then be like, hey, here are the takeaways, and then you should walk them through it so that they actually understand it. But yeah, I totally see your point about how many people are doing that, like actively digging for new information in the game and stuff like that, versus this is the build path I saw in pro builds or something.
Well, we're in a dangerous territory of descending into the Civil War, and so I want to.
We're reaching across. We're shaking hands. What are you talking about?
I could see the old illusions flaring up. But I do want to finish. We've got 3 more callers and another break. But LS, thanks for the call. Anything you want to shout out, or
you don't want to? Well, do you want to just stay on? I don't care. Is that okay, Travis?
I
It's
mean,
up to
I'll
you.
talk less to not distract from stuff. If you
I
just,
mean,
if you want to,
if that's true, that's fine. I like your long-winded rants, but I also worry about the length of the show.
We have 3 callers and roughly 30 minutes to go. I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
yeah,
all right.
you can just pass it to me whenever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Either way, let's take a quick break and talk about our second sponsor shout out for the evening, which is Draft Buff. You can go do !fantasy in Twitch chat right now. And if you're not watching from Twitch chat, you should go in the YouTube description and click draftbuff.com. If you've ever wanted to play Fantasy LCS, actually, you can also play Fantasy LEC and a draft that includes both of them. You should go check out Draft Buff. I know Riot used to have this stuff as a product. Oh, hang on, I'm trying to bring it up on the page right now. But they don't have it anymore. But guess what? Now you can do it. In fact, you can create a mock draft on their website right now by going to draftbuff.com/home. But if you want to, you can go download the app right now on Google Play or the App Store, the Apple App Store, if you've got an iPhone, an iPad, or whatever. And you can draft your own teams. Now's the time to do this before LCS and LEC and League of Legends kicks back up in just a little bit over a week. Let's see, I'm trying to load up. They've got an example draft that I can show you as well. But if you do sign up, please do me a favor and use Travis Gafford as the referral because it'll get you some cool cosmetic stuff in the thing. By the way, free to play and no like it doesn't cost money to draft. There's nothing like that. It's not a financially incentivized thing. It's all about the cosmetics and just having fun with your friends. So go check out draftbuff.com or load it up on the Google Play or Apple Store. It really helps me out when you guys check out our sponsors. And it kind of helps out Mark in a weird roundabout way. I don't know if you're interested in helping out Mark, but if you are, I guess you can do that. Check out Draft Buff. We appreciate them so much. And by the way, stay tuned because we're going to be doing a big fantasy thing for the first week where you guys can all compete against each other and against Mark and I. We're going to do that next week. Yeah. Mark and I need to finish those conversations, but it'll be really cool. Either way, check out Draft Buff. Thank you. And by the way, they are usually in the chat. I'm trying to see if I see them typing right now.
Yeah, they don't like me yet.
Oh, they are in the chat.
They like you. They're warming up to me, I think.
Thanks, Travis. And I guess Mark. So Draft Buff is in the Twitch chat right now. Just message them and ask them any questions about their product or services. We won't time you out if you're having a conversation with them. It's really cool that they did this last week too. They just hang out in the chat and are ready to answer any of your questions. So thank you to Draft Buff for that. Anyway, let's get our next caller. Mark, if you want to go grab them. Oh, he's already doing it. We got Slasher's Hat. Thank you for the sub. Petus to Fetus, Robtron, Moogle T. Let's see. Oh, Bobflow, I think is the name. And then Quiggle as well. Thank you all of the subs for coming in. Mark is grabbing our next caller. We've got 3 more to go on this episode of Hotline League. And then stick around after the stream because I'm going to be hanging out. Thru is here. Thru, where are you calling from?
Maine.
And did I get your name right? Or is it Thew?
There's no R
Thew.
there. I said the W.
Matthew. It's all right.
Oh.
So I fucking lost.
All right, whatever. Anyway, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So I want to talk about how Spica will win the Rookie of the Split, but he will be benched after Worlds.
Is he eligible for Rookie of the Split?
That was one of my questions. First of all, so he had the 3 games and was.
I don't think he's eligible.
He's not eligible. Well, he should have honorable mention, I guess.
Okay, so whatever. So great call. Thank you for it. No, all right, so you think, okay, if he was eligible, you would say he would win Rookie of the Split. Sorry, it sounds like your major point here is that he will do well but still get benched.
Yes. So basically, this comes from the episode of The Crackdown. Sorry to plug that on your show. But Sven basically talked about how TSM in 2019 and how he was in favor of bringing Spica over Acadian and Grig. And he basically talks about how he was really impressed by his performance in scrims, and ultimately, which led him into playing the last 3 games in 2019 on a pretty dumpster fire TSM. And so I think all the stars are kind of going to align for him, that the bar is going to be set super, super low for TSM junglers in general already. And so having any sort of overperformance on TSM will look good for hype for Spica. And then I think the only other person that could be Rookie of the Split would be Tactical. Which I don't know if he's eligible either. But basically, I think Tactical is going to be more of the heavy role player inside of TL. And they're going to be played around like mid and top a lot more than bot. And so Tactical wouldn't be able to shine as much as Spica will.
Hey, LS, how often is it in Korea that it's hard to even think of a candidate for Rookie of the Split?
It's not hard at all. There's so many candidates. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of a good one to come in after.
Yeah, I feel like we always end up, I don't know if it's the Rookie of the Split rules or what, but I feel like it's always the person who could have a breakout split has already played a couple games randomly as a sub on another tournament.
I know we've talked about expanding it behind the scenes at Riot about, I think it's 4 right now, but I think we might have moved it to 6 or so. I don't know what it is at, but it's definitely, one, it's probably a little too strict, but also...
I mean, it's definitely too strict. We literally never have rookies unless it's like, when it's comes time for me to vote, it's always like, oh, I can vote for this person who played 2 games one time or something. I don't know, it's weird.
I mean, that's the bigger point is that we don't use enough new talent. Just the joke. I was with Korea having plenty of options. Anyways, I think Spica will be okay. I don't know if that's a good take. I think the idea that he gets replaced is pretty likely if he doesn't pop off and actually play really well. Whether he'll do that, I'm not so sure, because the only time we saw him in LCS was a team in the middle of exploding, which is not really fair to judge him off of. And in Academy, he's always been good. But there's plenty of people who look great in Academy and then don't perform quite as well in LCS. So it's hard for me to judge, as well as the fact that he's stepping into the defense against the Dark Arts teacher spot, which is just doomed to fail.
I want to point out, I feel like I was the first person to coin that for that position.
I think literally everyone with a brain thought of that who had seen Harry Potter.
I think I before anybody else.
Yeah. I don't know. LS, have you watched much of Spica at all?
No. I'll be honest. I haven't really paid much attention. I think that I think TSM's problems supersede any individual player, but I think that TSM this split is probably just going to be better, because I think that the way that NA, well, not just NA orgs, but I think that when players are sort of comrades and share a similar goal and they're more friendly with each other, and the environment's better, it leads to healthier conversations and thus better practice. And that alone can be enough to beat or edge out other teams that are maybe similar to you. But in regards to like Spica in general, I think that he is but a raindrop amongst TSM's big problems. But then again, they're rumored to have a new coach, so I think that'll be good.
Yeah, but I've heard that the coach, I mean, the rumor is that they're not really going to have a coach. Have you heard that they're actually getting like a coach?
Or are you talking about the Vigar V2 thing?
Vagar.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Vigar V2.
Vagar.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last week. And our take with that was just like, how much of an influence can he be, assuming he can't be, if he's going to be remote with all the COVID-19 stuff going on. And if it is the kind of thing where interpersonal relationships and structure are the problem, a remote coach, like, you know, Monty has talked about when he was in Korea coaching, it was hard to address those problems because it's not really a strategic thing at that point.
Right. It can definitely be problematic. And in regards to like Spica, I mean, I can't. I think that the way NA teams play in general, and I think that the way that the jungle meta, or like what's required out of junglers if they're going to be playing well, I think the way that it's going to play out, I don't think that we're going to have like standout performances from jungle. So I don't know. This is sort of like a weird topic where in North America specifically, I think it's I've talked about this before. It's very easy for a bad jungler to seem good when the laners are all really good. When you just have winning laners everywhere. And then if you have losing laners, even if you're a good jungler, you're gonna look bad. So
our last 2
really
MVPs
hard.
have been junglers.
Pog. There you go.
Yeah, I think the jungle is definitely the most team dependent role in the game. Where like you're like, think about what Sven Skaren looked like from one split to the next in 2016 when TSM was like a dumpster fire in the regular season to like 16 or 17-1. You know, like he's looked like a completely different player, even though he's pretty much making the same plays of aggressive invades and stuff like that. So it really does depend on your laners, which to me, I kind of agree then is less about how Spica's playing, which will matter a lot, but also how the rest of TSM is functioning. And it makes me wonder what is even like his success condition. Because this is something I talked about with Keith when he got benched, was like, okay, they're in the playoff hunt. In his first split, role swapping to support,
Right.
he gets benched. What is his success condition then that keeps him in? Like what? They're guaranteed in the playoffs when everyone had them pegged as a 10th place team. Like if Spica is able to get to Worlds with this team, and he might I can totally see him still getting benched. Like what is actually expected of this kid?
Right.
So this is kind of just a piece that I want to go off from is that I'm not a TSM fan at all, first of all, but I do think if World still does happen, I think that TSM will be able to make it just because NA as a region is really weak right now. And I think they're going to basically buster out in groups, go 3-3 in groups, lose a tiebreak, of course, and then they are going to basically go and import a new player so they can be more competitive on the world stage. And so I think Spica, even if they go to Worlds, I don't know if his spot is safe.
Yeah. Which
I
is
mean, if the assumption is that they are playing him because they felt like they couldn't find a better player, I will agree that like that does not bode well for his future on the team. So
yeah, I mean, especially with the whole they have a import slot open currently, that feels pretty doomed for Spica.
Thew, thank you so much for the Thew. Thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to say as we say goodbye?
Yep, so make sure you pick up Spica on your draft buff team at draftbuff.com and refer Travis Gafford.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Not a problem. You too.
Man, callers just make my job so easy. All right, Mark is grabbing our next caller. Actually, I was going to shout out some subs, but there's no new subs, so I guess Alyssa and I will sit here in silence.
Can we get a fucking prime check
Mark
right now? And Twitch.
By the way, Ellis, I assume like the co-streaming stuff has just been. Do you get a lot of subs and stuff while you're casting, or do people not because there's less like ways for you to engage with the chat?
You mean like during the co-streams? Do I get a lot of subs? During the co-streams, I hit my peak sub count on Twitch. I hit 97. I went a little bit over 9,700. I didn't quite hit 10K.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
and you're living in Korea.
And I'm living in Korea.
I'm excited.
So...
I'm excited to see what house you'll own whenever you decide to retire or homes.
I'm gonna get us tangenting now on Twitch stuff, and if you don't feel comfortable talking about it, like how much did Twitch stream or co-streaming like increase your overall like viewership percentage? Do you know? I'm just curious.
Co-stream. So my last couple of co-streams were all 25 to 30K viewers. I peaked at 43K with the double lift host.
Jesus.
And my LEC live viewing, which was just my webcam, was 30K. And interestingly enough, there were attempts to get my stream shut down for LEC.
What the
Even though it was just my webcam. Yeah, that was like... And then my argument was I am fucking funneling viewers to the LEC because I'm not showing it. So you have to tune in to Riot's stream in order to, what am I talking about? So that ended up happening. But my viewership post co-streams, even for like random variety, I'm getting like 5, 6, which is up from like 3. And then when I do other stuff, I don't know. I can come close to 10K.
Were you playing the LEC audio?
No, I wasn't touching anything.
I just don't know how they could possibly, like, what. There's no like legal recourse. There's nothing they can DMC.
Yes.
That's such a weird. I'm surprised you didn't freak. Like, if somebody tried to do that to me, I would have
Nope, didn't
just
freak out.
blasted it instantly to everyone.
My world stream got threatened to be taken down. There was a lot of argument over it because my world streams were really big, but it was just my webcam.
How can they argue that? I just don't.
Because one of the arguments was that I was in the one of the arguments is that I would occasionally show clips on stream and talk about the clips while the thing was live.
Gotcha.
But there's like technically there's a rule, I think, in TOS.
Yeah, I mean, they could. If you're showing any gameplay footage, I guess they could DMCA your channel or take issue with it or something like that. So maybe that's what it is. It's just like, I don't know. That's really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho, based co-streaming, that's great for you. Blue Jay, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Ontario.
Ontario. Wait, which Ontario? California or Canada?
Canada.
Canada. Blue Jay.
Okay.
It's the.
Oh yeah.
Whatever.
I remember because we talked about this before. Anyway, what do you want to talk about on the show?
My take. So I don't even know if this is a hot take or not, but it seems to me like a lot of people have just kind of forgotten about TL ever since Doublelift's left. And I think TL is going to bounce back this split. I think they're going to 2-0 TSM in the summer split. And I also think they're going to make it to finals, but lose to C9.
Wow. Okay, so why do you have them beating TSM? Let's start there.
So I don't want to touch too much on what you guys already talked about with like Spica, but I guess I'll just go into it real quick. I don't think it's completely fair to throw all the failures of past TSM junglers on Spica. However, it's still hard to ignore that TSM hasn't been able to be successful in the jungle role for a long time now. So that's one thing, and to me that was their biggest issue last split, and not just last split, for many splits now, and I don't think that problem has been totally fixed yet. We saw Spica play a little bit last year, and while I don't think it was atrocious, there wasn't anything standoutish, you know? So I think that's the main point. A couple of other reasons are people are talking a lot about how Doublelift is hungry to bounce back, and while I do think that's true, I think that's equally as true for the rest of the players on TL.
So, I mean, that, and in my mind, that breaks it out as like a net neutral, right? Or are you saying like because there are 5 hungry players and maybe only 1 on TSM, which, you know, I'm not sure if I buy that. Like, I get really, it's a struggle for me whenever I hear hungry players as like an argument, and I hear it on Hotline League a lot.
Yeah, and that's fair. I guess what I am referring to specifically is that Doublelift is hungry is all the talk that you hear, but like I think it's, if you're going to say that, then I think it's equally as fair to say
I think
that TL is as well.
I think a lot of people talk about with Doublelift though, specifically because it was a problem last split about his motivation level. So saying like he's hungry now is specifically like he's gonna have a different level. He's decided
to start trying.
Right. Whereas Jensen, from what we heard about, was always trying.
Right.
And I think, you know, you can say all of TL maybe suffered a little bit with Broxton not showing up until partway into the split. But I think the overall who's going to see the biggest bump in performance is Doublelift, and that's why people kind of say him.
And I have a couple of other reasons, but I didn't want to throw too much at you at once. So I can go into a couple of other reasons.
Just give brief bullet points.
Yeah, so pretty much I think that Jat is great as a great addition to the team. I think there was definitely some issues with coaching last split. There was, he said, she said some stuff, you know, about like
Jat
how clear the message was.
What's the next bullet point?
Hang on, let me sift through my little notes here.
While you're sifting, we can talk about.
I got one.
Okay.
I got one.
What is it?
The other one is that it's been a while since we've seen Doublelift not set up to win a split. So even though Doublelift has always been a big reason for why that team has been a favorite to win, this is the first time in a long time that we haven't seen Doublelift on that favorite team. And yeah, like I said before, I still don't think Spica is enough to fill the void of the issue on TSM.
Okay.
On the coaching topic, LS, you have any bold predictions for Jat's first coaching position?
Jat's been one of the most diligent people that I've been aware of behind the scenes when it comes to trying to reach out and understand things. And I think in that regard, and like some of the top, like him and I have had conversations before some of the meta and other things were mainstream, so I think it's good in that regard. I think he's on the higher MMR end of things, right? Isn't he like D2, D1? I think that's also helpful.
He trolls a lot. He's always so like to what we were talking about earlier about experimenting and trying to actually be creative with the game. He was all over fasting Senna before that shit became popular, and he had like, I mean, they're kind of dumbass strats, but like, you know, he's pushing the needle forward where he's like fat. Like every time Krugs are up, he would like go and do Krugs with his jungler to try and get the double souls from that or whatever it was. Like, yeah, he is a really, he's high rated when he wants to be, and otherwise he's trolling for new ideas.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think the fact that he, I mean, at several points played at like a high level is good. I think that like being able to connect with your players and then talk about things more in depth is really helpful. And then I think the amount of stuff that he does behind the scenes or out of picture is more than I've seen from most people. So obviously, like it's a weird topic for me, from like the caller, right? Because we can't say stuff without there being a basis, because ultimately we're only using conjecture, and I think conjecture is really dangerous. You don't call TL's coaching staff with Kane and whoever else amazing when TL's winning, and then suddenly they're garbage when they're losing. Like that's not how it works. You identify the identity of the team, and is there noticeable changes or direction that's taking place? And if the answer is no, then it's most likely player-led, in my opinion.
Did
Was
your
there a
audio
weird
blow
noise?
up, Travis?
What's that?
I think your audio blew up, Travis.
My audio? Is it fine? Okay. Is it now?
LS did not do anything weird, so I think
I
that
don't
was
know.
on
I
your
didn't hear
end.
anything, so I guess it must have been on my end. I apologize to whoever did that.
Yeah, conjecture can definitely get pretty dangerous. That's why we let the callers do all of it, and then we just go, oh, I don't know about that. The point about connecting with your players and playing a lot is something that it's something that I actually wonder about how people feel, because like Monty, when he was coaching and doing that stuff, was talking about like, oh, I don't need to. I spend all that time playing or, you know, watching instead of playing and stuff like that. And I had a similar point of view about those kinds of things. But then the one piece of feedback that I got, after we bombed out in 2015 and got killed by C9, the gauntlet, when they were reverse sweeping everybody, we all got really drunk afterwards, and we were all just like kind of venting about like what we were all wrong about and stuff like that. And Piglet was like, you just don't play the game enough to me. And I was like, yeah, but I watch all this stuff and this and that. And I think it's something that is underplayed probably a little bit by the coaching community overall, was like how much you're playing the game, because some things are feel. And I think people don't always take that into account with like, this feels bad to play. And like, you might not know what the player means in some matchups where it's like, oh, this matchup feels fucking terrible. And like, you'll understand it way better playing it than watching him struggle to get CS or something like that.
Yes. I think playing, I used to be of the train of thought in 2014 through like 2015, 16, that playing wasn't important. And then as more and more time went on, I entered the opposite train of thought, that you need to be able to play, you need to be able to grapple. You don't need to be able to be as good as the pro player, but I think it's important to grapple. And then
I was just going to say, we've gone really off topic, and we've got another caller to go.
Okay.
So,
whoops. That was my fault.
It's okay.
Okay,
TSM. Okay, I'll just do.
TL,
we'll wrap it up.
TL in the finals.
Yeah.
No, that's my take.
Who do you think will be there instead?
I'm taking the field. Is that not an option?
Oh, I guess that's an option.
As C9 in the finals, and then one of the other 8 teams.
What is more likely, TL or TSM in the finals?
FlyQuest.
Fuck. I actually might say TSM with Doublelift.
LS, I don't know if you want to make an assessment given.
I think. I mean, I don't think TL will win. If that's what you're asking.
Well, the question is, do you think TL or TSM will be in?
Oh,
which
will be
one is
better.
more likely to be
TSM.
in the finals against C9?
TSM.
Okay.
Yeah.
Blue Jay, thanks for the call. Any shout-outs you want to make before we move on to our last caller?
No, I'm good. Thanks a lot for having me on the show, guys.
Yeah. Have a good one. All right. We've got one more caller to go. And then things will go. Hey, thank you to Pedro Polo, Arciano, the Chadma, and Lane Plox for the subs. Our last caller is here. Frag what frag. Welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
Oh, sorry. I need to lower your volume. I'm calling from Monrovia, California, though.
From Monrovia. Have you been on before?
Yeah, I did the World's Take about Damwon.
Okay. What do you want to talk about today?
It's actually player branding, like individually from like team branding. So I think that like there's teams in LCS that are branded really well, like TSM, C9, TL, and like they have good presence. But like for instance, C9 even like won the split, they dominated, but they didn't have like a sneaky on their roster this year, and I think that showed in viewership at the end of the end of all of it. And there's a huge difference between honesty that players have when they're in an interview and they give an honest answer, and someone actually being vulnerable on like camera and being like open in what they're doing and saying. And I think that that's kind of like the missing factor. A lot of people will say something like honestly, but they won't be vulnerable. I guess a huge example would be like a Huhi versus a Someday. Like Someday's actually fucking crazy. Like he's super good, carried 100 Thieves this split, but like guy doesn't have nearly the fan base of Hui and
You're saying Huhi or Huni?
Huni, sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, and Huni's like such a big brand versus like Someday doesn't really have that.
So sorry, do you think Someday should try to be a bigger brand, or I mean, some of this just comes down to the personality of these players, right?
Yeah. For Someday, he's actually like a shyer player, and they've like shown that in interviews. But there's like plenty of players that show like moments, even in your interviews, where they'll like give a little bit of flair, give a little bit of not just honesty, but like they'll be a little unprofessional, I guess is the better way to say it. And a lot of people feel like they have to be professional on camera, which stops them from being personable to other people. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Ellis, go ahead.
I guess I had 2 points here. I think Someday is held in higher regard than Huni. Generally, whenever he's brought up, even if he's not actively talked about that much. I agree with you, like on the branding thing. I actually just went on like a mini rant about this yesterday for like 20 to 30 minutes because I think, like what you're saying about Sneaky leaving, there's 2 parts here. One is that you have to be very afraid when star players leave, because I imagine that if Doublelift and Bjergsen and other top tier players retire, the viewership will tank. And I was talking about this yesterday in regards to Uzi's retirement, that there will be some collateral damage that happens. There's fallout. I think LCK needs to be very afraid when Faker retires. And I think that that's because teams and Riot are not doing a good enough job to actually storytell brands and promote things and other stuff. And I think that because Twitch became very diverse and very overpopulated, even if you're good now, it doesn't mean that you'll have a good stream, doesn't mean you'll have a big Twitter. Those times are long past. 2013, 2012, you're one of the top players in LCS, turn on your stream, 10K viewers. 5K viewers, 6K viewers, and you can grow your brand that way. You go on Twitter, lots of people are going to retweet you because all eyes on you. Nowadays, it's not the same. You have LCS players with 100 viewers or less, 200 viewers or less. They have no subs, no Patreon, no YouTube, nothing going on. Branding's really bad. So I totally agree with you there. However, viewership for NA, I do not think was actually down. This was brought up in the Reddit thread. If you add me, Dominates, and the other miscellaneous co-streamers, viewership to the numbers. Because we're talking 70, 90,000 viewers that are not included in the stats.
I am suspicious that even if you include those numbers, I'm suspicious that it it wasn't neutral. So I guess I'm supposedly getting an interview with the commissioner soon, but
There was
Oh,
also
that's cool.
Monday Night League and shit like that going on too, so it's a little hard to translate
yeah,
one to one.
I think to your point, LS, like it is true that it's difficult when you look at the main Twitch channel and you see it looking so down, whereas like
Yeah.
a lot of viewership has switched to co-streams and a lot of it has switched to YouTube. So it's not
Mhm.
as bad as it seems, but it does seem as though like I have some friends that look at these types of things, and I think even including the co-streams and stuff, it does feel like LCS viewership was down, and I don't really know why, because overall like Twitch viewership leveled a ton, even if it's neutral. That's I think a bad thing, because so many other things went up whenever everybody started quarantining. So but I will say, like, it is, I mean, we've talked about this before on the show, it's tough right now in the LCS because there are just not a lot of new personalities, and the ones that are there, like Closer, I think is a great example. Like the League fans just haven't caught on to him, and I don't know if that's
Well,
on Golden Guardians or on LCS or whatever, but I don't know.
I mean, to like Licorice should be North America's like fucking golden child right now. Like
Yes.
he got to world semifinals. He's always popping off. He's incredible. He's got 60K followers. You know, like, and he's trying. I know he is. Like, I've talked to him about this. Riot has reached out to like players, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this, but there is like an attempt to build stars.
I'm getting an emergency announcement, BRB.
Oh.
Like from the sirens thingy.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you go for it. Hopefully he's all right. I know he said that he had a COVID case in his apartment. So hopefully it's just related to like an update or something. In the meantime, Licorice is someone who should be a star in the league. In some sense is, but doesn't quite have the
He's not a popular player. I mean,
yeah,
I'll
he's
say
not.
it.
Yeah, like he streams a little bit, probably not as much, but he does put an effort in. But it does feel like a lot of pros, and I don't know. I mean, I wish LS was still here talking about the Korean scene and some of the newer people who come up. I guess Faker's still there. Oh, he's back. You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I think it's about Corona.
Yeah. I was about to say good to hear, but not really. I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way, I was saying like new stars in North America do feel slower to develop. With Licorice sitting only at 60K followers, and I was going to ask, like, is the Korean scene seeing similar problems? Because you said like when Faker retires, my God, like, are some of the newer exciting players like a Clid, or I don't know who's even like the new super popular good players that people are thinking about?
So when some of the new super insane players stream, they get very low viewers. Obviously, Twitter's not a thing here. Facebook is kind of a joke. It's just an echo chamber that maxes at maybe 3K likes, even for some of the superstar players.
Mhm.
But Facebook is sort of the social media here. I think in general, like, man, I should just like upload my rant to YouTube, edit it or something. I basically went off that like BDD and Chovy should be much more iconic right now than they are, and when they collide with Faker, it should actually be really big for viewership, and like there should be stories, but no one fucking cares.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, we know that it's not impossible though, because some streamers are able to be essentially constructed in very small amounts of time in the league ecosystem. And obviously, I would cite like Tarzan's blow up. I would cite TF Blade when he just randomly started streaming. Like there was so much hype around him. He's branded very well. And then even someone that's not really competitive, but Sanchovies, right? The new, I mean, he's like a casual like league streamer, but his brand is fucking exploding. He's grown like 40,000 followers on Twitter or something. He's almost past Licorice, right? And he's just a casual person.
Yeah.
How can these people develop way larger brands with way bigger pulls than LCS players?
Well, because they
Actually,
it's
yeah,
because they're actually creating content like full time, right? Whereas I feel like that's not what's happening.
Yeah,
with
but
the league
to
players.
LS's point, like your content that you're creating as a pro player is the fucking games. You know, like you pop off in a game.
Right.
What do you do after that to convert that to stuff? And like, what is also the LCK or the LCS doing when someone pops off? Yeah, we do like the post game interviews, but is that, you know, I think it's fair to ask, is that the correct thing to be doing? Or is there something better? Like, should those go to social media instead of just go to the broadcast. I don't know.
Frag, what do you? Sorry, you've been trying to get a word in.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think that's the difference between honesty and vulnerability, though, right? Like, streamers, they're streaming all the time. Like, Tyler One is the biggest streamer in NA, right? Like, just probably for League, and he's super vulnerable on camera. And there's a difference between like being vulnerable and being like sappy or anything. Vulnerability is just like being yourself openly, and it's like truer honesty almost. Like, people can answer a question in an interview honestly, but if you're like doing it professionally, you're not really being who you actually are, you know? And a lot of pro players put that on, and I get it because like it's like the professional side of things. They don't want to lose their job. They need to come off professional. And a lot of people in interviews have even said, like, if I talk shit and all of a sudden, you know, I get slapped or clapped, it comes back on me.
Yeah, no,
But
I mean that everybody does play it way safer now on in interviews.
Yeah, and you guys brought up Licorice, but like even still, I would think that a bigger one would even be like Blabberniski. Like they're part of the huge reason like mid jungle is the reason why C9 is winning so much. And I've seen C9 like try with Licorice, and they put him in that poker tournament thing that they did on their channel, and they're like trying to push these guys out there, but it has to come from the players. And that's something that's huge that happened with Sanchovius. He started talking to Mo and LS and other people on his streams, and all of a sudden like it's one of those things when you actually have a conversation with someone, you're more naturally going to be yourself. And that's part of why your channel does so well, is because instead of interviewing people, you kind of converse with them, and it allows them to openly be themselves without feeling like they have to put themselves out there.
I mean, even like LS is a good example. Like, I don't know if anyone has done more as a content creator in the scene than LS in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, right? Like, you watch every region, you're streaming all the time, you're participating in other people's streams, even when you're not. You're watching every region, you're putting out videos and shit. And it's like, what do you know? LS has blown up because he's put the work in. And I think that's something that a lot of pro players just don't want to do because they're focused on winning, and that's the only thing on their minds necessarily. Or when they're not focused on winning, they want to go relax and not build the rest of their brand and empire and stuff.
Yeah, like no, I don't disagree with that. I don't think that it even takes streaming all the time. Like it's not like Double have streamed well last season like the whole entire time or anything either. And it, of course, he's had his brand for a while, right? But I think that the bigger aspect of it is like when you get on the cameras for one, like either a show through your team, or when you're in an interview or anything, being like again more vulnerable to answers, not just answering it honestly or professionally, but like wording it in the way that you would actually word it if you're like talking to a friend. And because like people crave that, people crave like personability, and if people don't show it, like if stars don't show it, if players don't show it, then you're just not gonna really get that big of a following. The following comes from that. The other following comes from like star players, so like Faker and even Jerkson when he came into LCS. It's like when someone's just ridiculously mechanically good or just ridiculously good at any game, they're gonna get a brand. But like sometimes the fan favorite isn't always gonna be the best player, and that's why like there is a middle ground.
I actually think Riot.
Oh, go ahead, Ellis.
Oh, sorry.
And then it's fine. You can finish your thought.
I think Riot should actually utilize influencers to actually utilize them. And what I mean by that is like Tyler One, if you just look at like stats and stuff, he has 700,000 people unique tuning into his streams throughout the course of his stream. That is unholy. I don't know what TF Blades is. If I look up TF Blades unique turnover, let me see if this will come up. But basically, what I'm getting, so TF Blade is getting like 150 to 200k unique people tuning into his streams. These are a lot of people that you don't know how much they maybe pay attention to like pro players, but like what Mark Z was saying with like Sanchovi's blowing up by connecting with pro players like Broken Blade and Yasuo and other influencers and then growing a brand. Riot could easily actually utilize influencers, I think, to help generate attention. Like I think having Tyler One on the broadcast the way that they did is good. You know, to draw eyes and to draw attention. And I think that that's important because otherwise things just all fall on the star players, and if they leave, it's going to be a doomsday.
There has been more of that, but I think something you said right at the end there about connecting Tyler One to the pro player directly, as opposed to like, you know, on broadcast or something, because anyone who's been on, for people who haven't been on broadcast, it's a really weird sensation. And even like Tyler One, the first couple of times he was on broadcast with like me and Dash on the analyst desk, there's like a cadence and like a unseen rhythm to what we do that if you're not used to, it actually is. It feels really hard to be natural. And like Tyler 1's gotten a lot better, but it's the reason a lot of pro players struggle. Not just from like a lot of pro players are great at talking about the game if you just sit down and talk to them normally, but you put them on the desk with replay packages and camera bumping around and who they're supposed to look at and non-verbal cues of who's talking next and stuff.
Right.
Like it's so like that's why I think if you want to use Tyler 1 effectively, it's not just bring him on the analyst desk or have him do like some awkward interview where he's talking to another pro player, but like to the caller's point, something that's a little bit more authentic and vulnerable than sometimes comes across. Maybe that would translate better. I don't know. I'm kind of just throwing shit at the wall.
Frag, thanks for the call. Anything you want to say before we close out the show?
Oh, no, just thanks for having me. Good shows, guys.
Thanks. Have a good one. All right, that wraps the show. Mark, any shout outs, plugs, anything you want to say at the end?
Not really. Not much is going on in my life right now, personally. LCS is starting up. I think I have a meeting on Friday, which is my first official meeting about this, even though we've kind of started talking. So I'm looking forward to that. Otherwise, the rest of the world, there's a lot of shit going on. Black Lives Matter. Check out any resources you can.
Did you guys do an episode of The Dive?
Yeah, I think we might be doing one about Uzi.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah, check out if you want to see some stuff. You can check out my Twitter. I've retweeted some things.
What's that noise in the background?
My cat's going full spaz mode.
Great.
Just ignore it. Just ignore it.
LS, how about you? What do you want to plug?
Twitch Prime.
Thank you. I appreciate
That's
it.
pretty much it.
Yeah, everybody go find LS on Twitch. I don't feel like I need to say that because I feel like everybody that watches this show, your stream is always listed in the back end as like one of the maybe the
I mean,
biggest
he's more
stream that I
popular
share
than us.
stuff
I don't
with.
know if we need to direct much.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for popping on though. Shout out to Alienware and Draft Buff. And thanks Draft Buff for hanging out in the chat, answering questions. Feel free to message them as we and stuff. I'll be on stream. I'm not going to go anywhere. So thanks to Mark and Alice for coming on. This has been Hotline League episode 125.
Thanks. Bye.
See ya.